So to begin the turtleneck, we're going to chain out 38. So just work your 38 stitches and then I'll meet you up again. And now we'll work in the third chain from the hook a half double crochet and work half double crochets all the way along your chain. Okay, so you should have a total of 36 stitches. We'll chain 2 and turn. Our chain 2 is not included as a stitch. And now we'll work half double crochets in the back loop. So going through the back loop only in every stitch across. So we're just going through the back loop, working a half double crochet. And if you're not familiar with your basic stitches, you'll want to go watch our beginner tutorials first. This is an intermediate pattern. So now for the remainder of the turtleneck, we're just working rows in half double crochets in the back loops only, and we're going to do that for a total of 52 rows. So work up your 52 rows and then I'll meet you up again. Okay, so once you have your 52 rows, I'm finishing up here, we're just going to fold the turtleneck together. Because what we're going to do is slip stitch it together now. So you're just lining up your stitches and then you're going to go through the stitch, the first stitch here, and then just go over through the stitch here and slip stitch that together. So that's all you're doing all of the way down. So going through every stitch. And just make sure you don't pull those slip stitches too tight. So I'll complete that and then meet you back up. Okay, so I completed that. I'm going to chain 1. And now what we're going to do is work, keep the seam here to the outside because when we fold it over, that seam will be hidden. And now what we're going to do is work around the edge. So for every 2 half double crochet rows, we want 3 stitches. So what I find an easy way to do that is the first row, I'll put 1 stitch, and then the next row I'll do 2 stitches, and I'll just alternate that around, and you should have a total of 78 stitches worked around the entire turtleneck. Okay, so we're going to slip stitch to join. So we have a total of 78 stitches. We're not going to chain 2. We're going to work a half double crochet into that very first stitch. And we're going to work 12 half double crochets. 2, 3, 4. I've worked 12 and then we'll do 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. And then we'll work 12 and 2 again. So I've worked 12, so now I'm adding 2 in the next. And you're just going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, so you should be ending here with 1 stitch and you'll add 2 in that final stitch. So you now should have a total of 84 stitches. We'll slip stitch in the first half double to join. And now the next round, we're going to be increasing by 12 stitches. So we're going to work a half double crochet in the first, the next. So we have 2 and we want a total of 6. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll increase 2 stitches. And then we'll work 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll work 2. And just repeat that pattern all the way around. Coming around to the end, so I'm ending with 2 stitches. And now we've increased up to 96 stitches. I'm going to slip stitch to join. And now for this round we won't do any increases, but what we're doing is we're skipping that first stitch, working into the next. And then we'll add 2 in the final stitch, and that's just going to help our join line stay a little bit straighter, because a half double crochet round tends to want to curve. So I'll get you always on that non-increase round to skip the first stitch and increase the last stitch. So we'll just work now 1 in every stitch around. Okay, so I've worked around, I added 2 in the final stitch, so I now have 96 stitches. And I'm going to slip stitch to join. Okay, so now the next round we're going to do another increase, and this is how the increase is going to go throughout. So our last increase we worked 6 stitches and then 2. This increase round we'll work 7 stitches and then 2. And then we'll do a non-increase again, and then our next increase will be 8 stitches and then 2, and it will just keep going in that pattern. For every non-increase round, we're always going to skip the first and add 2 to the last. So now this is our first stitch, like right in here. So we'll work our first half double. Just not sure how that looked for sure. So we want to work 7. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're going to work 2. 1, 2. So that's your increase pattern all the way around. So I want you to keep increasing, following the increase pattern until you've reached 132 stitches. So I'm going to keep working away on my piece, and then once I've increased up to 132, I'm going to meet you back, and then we're going to work on the puff stitch. Okay, so I've worked it up to 132 stitches, and I have a total of 9 rounds. So now when we work a puff stitch round, we're never going to work it on an increase. We'll work it on a non-increase so that we don't have to worry about the increasing. What we also need to do is turn and work our puffs to the wrong side, and this is just so the puff will stick out. So what we're going to do is work a single crochet in that first stitch, and then we're going to work a puff in the next, and this is a slightly modified puff. I don't want it to be super big, I just want it a more flat puff. So what we're going to do is yarn over, go through the stitch, pulling up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over, go back through the stitch, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3, and then work a single crochet. So it's going to puff out on that side. So yarn over, go through, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, go through, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through all 3, and then a single crochet in the next. And a single crochet. So we're just alternating between single crochets and puffs. So one more time. For the puff, it's a yarn over, go through the stitch, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, go back through the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through all 3, and then work a single crochet. You can see sort of how those little guys are looking. So I'm going to repeat that all the way around. This is a modified bobble stitch because I don't want the stitch to be too puffy. So that's why we're only going through the 2 times rather than a normal bobble stitch that would be repeated 5 times. Okay, so I'm coming all the way around and I'm ending here with a bobble. And I'm going to slip stitch in that first single crochet to join. And now we're going to turn. So, how this pattern is going to work, when we do a section of bobble, we want 3 rows of bobbles in total. So between the bobble rows, we'll have our regular half double crochet row with our increase. So we're going to yarn over, work a half double crochet in each of the next 10. And then we'll do our increase, so 2 in the next. And that's the increase pattern all the way around. In total, I want to be increasing our yoke to 228 stitches. And I'm just going to show you here sort of our pattern. We have 9 rows worked, and then we do a bobble, a half double, a bobble, a half double, a bobble. And then we work 5 rows of half double before we reach another section of bobbles. So then we'll do 9, and then we'll do a section of bobbles again. So we're always having clusters of the 3 bobbles separated by half double crochets. So as we work through now, we're keeping the pattern the same, the increasing every other row. Just for this section of bobbles, we'll be working the bobbles instead of those non-increase rows. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working away. So the goal here is that every other row we're going to keep increasing up to 228. And like I say, the bobbles will be added in on row 10, on row 12, on row 14, and then we go 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then we'll have a bobble on round 20, 22, and 24. Okay, so that's how the pattern's going to work as we increase. So work away and work up to 228 stitches, and then we'll meet up again. Okay, so I want to show you my progress. So I've worked up to 228 stitches. So my join line is looking pretty good. It's not curving too much. And this is going to go down the side of the cardigan. And now what I have done is I've marked with stitch markers the arms in the body section. So what I do at this point is I break out the arms and the body section. So I have 44 stitches for one arm hole. Then I have 70 stitches for the front Then I have another 44 stitches for the next arm and then 70 stitches along the back. So I marked it with my markers so that it's easy to see where I'm going with my stitches, because the next thing we're going to do is go around and join up the body part. So this first section is the first armhole here. So this is our join, and this is the armhole. Now what we're going to do is chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to join into this marker here. Okay, so there is our first armhole, and then this is starting to do the body. So now what we'll do is start working around in our half double crochet stitches. So just yarn over, and we're going into that next stitch. And you should be working across 70 stitches now for the body. So work that, and then I'll meet you back up again. Okay, so my 70th stitch will be in the marker here. And so the next section I've marked off to 44 stitches. That is the next armhole. So what we'll do is we'll chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go over, and we're joining into that stitch marker. We'll get that marker out of there. Okay, so now we have the other armhole here, and we're going to continue working around the body. So you should have 70 stitches remaining. We're going into that next stitch, a half double crochet, and we're going to complete this all the way around. So you should have a total of 70 stitches. Okay, so I'm finishing with 70 stitches, and we're just coming up here to the armhole area. So what we'll do for now, I am just going to slip stitch down here into that first chain. Now at this point you can choose to continue with the body, or we can start working on the sleeves. So you can see the body of the sweater is now going to be 70 plus 4 plus 70 plus the 4 chains over here. So in total, we're going to have 148 stitches going around the body of the sweater. The armhole openings are going to be 44 plus 4, so we're going to have 48 stitches for the arm openings. So now the body of the sweater, we're just going to work without doing any decreasing. We want this pattern to stay the same number of stitches throughout going down the body. But our sleeve, we will have a decrease pattern that we'll have to follow. So to keep things simple, I'm just going to fasten this off for now, because I was pretty much at the end of a ball. And then I'm going to show you how to work the sleeve. Both sleeves will essentially be worked the same way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to join in to, I've got my 4 chains. I'm going to join in to, I guess, this 3rd chain. I just want my seam to be in the center here. I'm going to chain 2 and then I'm going to work a half double crochet in that same chain. And I'm going to work a half double crochet in the next chain. And then I'm going to want to work around the 44 stitches of the arm hole. So 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to go all the way around 44, and now we have the 2 chains. So including the first 2 stitches in the chain and the last 2, you should have 48 stitches. I'm going to slip stitch to join that up. Okay, and now what we're going to do, in order to keep this half double crochet join staying straight, we're going to always be decreasing the first 2 stitches and then increasing the last stitch. So remember that throughout. We're always going to be doing that. I'm going to reduce every 4th row. We're going to do a decrease, and we're going to decrease the sleeve by 2 stitches. So now, just looking at my notes here, so now we have a few things to remember. So every 4th row we're decreasing, plus we also have to follow our puff stitch pattern. So how the pattern works is we do 9 rows of half double crochet, then we do our bobble row, half double, bobble row, so that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5 rows worth of work here. Then we do 5 rounds of half double crochets, and then we do our 5 rounds of bobble pattern again, and then we go back to do 9, so we have a bigger space, so then we do 9 rounds of half double crochets, and then we do the bobble, the 5, the bobble again. So that's sort of how it's going down the sleeve. So you just have to remember that we have a gap of 9 and then a gap of 5, a gap of 9 and a gap of 5 between our bobble sections. So those are the things you need to remember. You need to remember every 4th row you're decreasing, and then after we've worked 9 rounds of half double, we're going to do the bobble cluster section again. Now for this size, it ends up that we don't have any decreases on our bobble section, which makes that a lot easier. I won't chain 2 again, so this is going to be a decrease here. So I'm just going to skip over the first and do a half double crochet in the next. Then I'm just going to work my half double crochets all the way around, and I'm going to add 2 in the final stitch. Okay, so when you've worked all the way around, you're putting 2 half doubles in the last stitch. And I'm just marking my first stitch with a stitch marker, and it's just going to help keep me on track. It's a good idea when we're not chaining. So I'm going to slip stitch to join. And so you want to have a total now of 3, have done 3 rounds of your sleeve opening, okay? So 1, 2, 3. So I've gone ahead and worked that 3rd round without coming back and showing you, but the 3rd round is worked the same as the 2nd. So now what we're gonna do is do the decrease. So this is what I wanted to show you. So how we're gonna do this, we're gonna continue doing that decrease and 2 at the end for the first 2 stitches in the last stitch, just so we can stay consistent with that. So I'm just gonna skip over the first, work into the next. Okay, and then I'm gonna do a decrease across the next 2. Let me just stick my marker here. So decrease the next 2, so go in and then go in the next and pull up a loop, yarn over, and just pull through all 4. So now I'm gonna work this all the way around until I have 3 stitches remaining. So now once we have the 3 stitches remaining, we're going to decrease. And then we're going to add 2, that's falling out there, 2 in the final stitch. And now you should have 46 stitches. We'll slip stitch to join. Okay, so now we have another 3 rounds without any decreases, and then the 8th round will be decreasing again. So it's really important that you follow along with the pattern for this tutorial. It's a really advanced, this is an advanced pattern, and it's really hard for me to go through everything step by step, so you really need to follow along with your pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and do my next 3 rounds, and then I'm going to do another decrease, and then I'll meet you up for that bobble stitch round. So I finished off that decrease round, so I have 8 rounds of my sleeve made, but 9 now in total, because again, we're always referring to the stitch pattern, and this is going to be different for every size that you're making. So what we're going to do now is just slip stitch to join. And remember, when we do the bobbles or the puffs, we have to turn. So basically this is just like we've done throughout the rest of the pattern. It's just now we're on the sleeve. So we're going to do that single crochet in the first, and then our modified bobble. Okay, and then a single crochet, and then a bobble, and we're working that all the way around. Ended with a bobble, and I've made sure that I have 44 stitches, and then I will slip stitch to join, and I'm turning back for my half double. So I'll do the same as what I've been doing. I decrease the first 2, increase the last 2, just to keep our join straight. So I'm going to work that all the way around. Then I have another bobble round, and then I hit my decrease. But what I think I might do is I just may pop back on here just to show you how, if on your size you hit a decrease on your bobble round, what you need to do. My 2 stitches in the final, and I'm going to slip stitch to join. I'm going to turn to do a bobble round. So now if I'm not decreasing, I'm going to single crochet in that first stitch. But if I'm doing a decrease, what I would do is I would just do the single crochet in the next stitch. And then when you come around, you'll finish with your bobble and skip the last stitch. So you'll end up, if you did that right now, you would end up with only 42 stitches, but I don't want to decrease, so I'm going to keep it at 44. But all you're going to do is skip the first and skip the last, and then that will get you your decrease. So if you're working on a size and you're a little confused, that's all you need to do. So I am going to continue now just following the decrease pattern of every 4th row and my stitch pattern as it goes. So I've done my section of 9, then I'll do my bobble section, and then I'll do a section of 5, and then my bobble section. And so we're looking here at the other sleeve, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to go in, we're going to find our 4 chains, we're going to go into the 3rd chain here, looking at it, and we're going to just do the exact same thing on the other sleeve. Okay, so I'm also going to show you here the body. And we're joining in similar to the sleeves. So I slip stitched and joined and fastened off because I was pretty much finished that ball. I'm just leaving that. You could slip stitch over if you're partway through a ball and you don't want to fasten off. But I am going to join in to the 3rd chain, 1, 2, 3, so that we're in the center of it. going to chain 2, and I'm going to half double crochet into that chain, and I'm going to half double crochet into the next chain. Okay, and then what we're going to do is work 70 stitches. When we get to this chain over here, I've already worked part of that sleeve. You've got 4 stitches to work across there, and then 70, and then 2 to finish that chain. So I'm just going to work all the way around in half doubles. Now, depending on what part of the pattern you're in, for different sizes, that could change. That you may not be, you may be working a bobble. But for medium size, we're working around in half double. So I've worked all the way around. I've slip stitched to join, and I have 148 stitches working around now. So the body part is really simple because we're keeping the stitch count the same. We're just working our stitch pattern. So from this last bobble, for my section here, I want to do a section of 9 half doubles, and then into my bobble, and then a section of 5, and then my bobble, and so on. So I've already worked through the stitch pattern with you, so now we just, basically you can make the sweater as long as you want. And what's great about a top down is that you can try it on as you go. So it's a great idea to try it on now, and if this needs to be a little bit longer, you're finding it's too big, then you might want to go back and work a smaller size or continue to make a bigger size. But you can try on as you go, and that really makes it great for getting that right fit. So it is important once you get that yoke done and these joined up to try it on and see how it's fitting. And like I say, if you want it bigger, go back and increase a little bit more. If you think, oh, this is too big, then just pull it back and go back to some of the other decreases to get that right fit. Okay, so I continued in my pattern down the body of the pullover. Now what's great with this design is you really can go as long as you want. But what I decided to do is to stop down here at this section of bobbles. So I have my section of 9, I have my section of 5, I have my section of 9 again, and then I just did one section of the bobbles, and then I completed that with 1 round of half double crochet. So now what I want to do is do my join as you go band. So I'm going to chain out 12. So this will be the width now of the band. And it's going to be worked the same as our turtleneck. So we're going to work in half double crochets, and we'll work them around in the back loop only. So now to start, we're going to do a half double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. So yarn over, go through the 3rd chain, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. So now just continue working your half double crochets down the chain, and we're going to have a total of 10. So the band is 10 stitches in total. So I'll complete working that down, and then I'll meet you at the end of the chain. So now when we look along our band here, our round, we're going to make 2 half double crochet rows for every 3 stitches along this edge. So we're going to start out, we're going to skip that first stitch right here. We're going to slip stitch into the next 2. So we've already made 1 row here, and we're going to make another row going up, and that will be for these 3 stitches along the bottom here. So let's turn, yarn over, and we're going through the back loop only of the stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now what we'll do is chain 2. We're going to work back down and we're going to be going through the back loops only again. So half double crochets in the back loop only, and then I'll meet you at the bottom. Count as you're going down to make sure that you're staying at 10 stitches as you work. So I've worked down 10 stitches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into the next 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to just do the same thing. We're going to go back up through the back loops only 10 stitches and come back down, and then we slip stitch along 3 again. And you just keep repeating this all the way around the body of the pullover. Whenever you're getting to the top, we're chaining 2 and turning and then working back down. And it's always in the back loops, half double crochets in the back loops the entire way around the pullover. One more time. So we've already worked into the stitch, so we're slip stitching into the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And just repeating all the way around. So I'm going to complete that now off camera, and I'll meet you up when it's finished. Okay, so for the sleeve, you're working the stitch pattern the same as the body. We're just doing our decreases every 4th row. So now you can keep going until the sleeve is long enough. This sleeve is just gonna come probably to here on me, but then it will have some stretch that it can pull down. I don't want it to be too long for this sweater, so I'm gonna measure it for you, and just so you can see. So I've gone about 11 inches. So now the cuff that I'm gonna add, here I'll measure this side, is gonna add an additional 3 inches. So the sleeve length will be, depending on where you measure it here, it'll be about 14 inches, but then it will have a little bit of stretch as well. So what I've done is I've done a section of 9, my section of 5, my bobbles, and then my section of 9. So if you wanted to add a little bit of extra length, you could go ahead and do another section of bobbles and then maybe 1 round of half double crochet. So once you get your sleeve to the length that you need it, and remember you want to try it on because this does come down the arm a bit, even a little bit more sometimes than the underarm, depending. So it's good to try it on to get that right fit and then go. And I wouldn't maybe decrease it anymore after this point. I think I would just continue with a little bit extra length, but not doing any decreases, or it might get too tight around the cuff. So this is going to work the same way as the body, except we're doing the cuff a little bit longer, and you could add even more length here if you want as well. If you don't want to get into another section of bobbles, you could just make a longer cuff. So I'm going to chain out 14. Then working a half double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3. So we'll end up with 12 stitches, whereas the bottom of the sweater I only did 10. So this is just a little bit longer. Learning to customize a sweater for your own fit is really important, and the top down are so easy to customize because you can try it on as you go, so there's no guesswork. You just put it on and you can see how long your sleeve's going to be, how long the body's going to be, and you can make adjustments for your body type and your arm length, which is great because some people do have longer arms or shorter arms, so it's nice to be able to just customize your sweater. So I'm just going to finish that and then I'll make you 12. And just like we did before, I want to skip that first stitch and we're going to slip stitch into the next 2. And then we'll turn, and just the same way that we worked the other band, we're going to work half double crochets in the back loop only, working all the way across. And then when you get to the end, we're going to chain 2 and turn, and then continue working half double crochets in every stitch across. You want to have 12. And when we get to the bottom, we're going to slip stitch across 3 stitches. So I'll complete that and meet you at the bottom. Okay, so in the next 3 stitches, we're going to slip stitch 1, 2, 3. And you're just going to keep doing this all the way around. Now I want to have 4 of my rows, and that 24 of these rows. You could do 23 to 24. Just keep working around and then I can show you how to seam those up at the end. So this is all we're doing throughout. So I'm just going to show you on the other cuff just what to do when you're finished. So I decided to go with 23 rows. So you can just count them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So how you can figure out how many rows you should do, basically we finished off here with our slip stitch down at the bottom, but if you take your 34 stitches and divide that out by 1.5, it will give you 22.66, so we just round up to 23. So now what you want to do is just flip this so that it's inside out. You could flip your whole sweater inside out, but I'm just going to do this section here so I don't have to do the whole sweater. Take your yarn needle and all you're going to do is just go stitch by stitch and seam this up. So you'll do this for both the sleeves and also for the body when you've worked your way around. And it's the same equation for the body. You just take your total number of stitches and divide by 1.5, and then that will give you a rough estimate as to how many rows you need to make for your band. So we're always doing 2 rows for every 3 stitches. So we just seam this all the way up. Go through the last twice, and we can give that a knot as well. And then you just want to weave your end once you're finished. So you can weave this one way and then back in the opposite direction. So the written pattern will have a guideline, of course, for how many to reduce down to, but again, just try on your garment and you can adjust to make a longer sleeve if you need to. Just adjust accordingly. Okay, so there's that. So you have both of your cuffs and your band along the bottom of your pullover finished, then you are complete. So you can lay it out and block it or steam it. You just want to dampen your piece and lay it out to measurements. I find this works out pretty good without blocking, but you may find that if it's snugging in a bit, just by laying it out to measurements, it will make sure it has that nice correct fit. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks so much.